Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Obscure Arc. Today, as usual, we're here with my co-host, Jared.
Hello.
How are you doing, Jared?
Good. I forgot to mention this beforehand, but I'm going to be fighting with all my willpower to not talk about one anime that we might cover in another episode. I apologize in advance if I make any it's just like the anime's Journal with Witch. And I repeatedly talk about it. So my goal is to not do that for this episode, but we have really good ones this month. I think another month of really good ones that I'm really excited to talk about, especially we're going to be talking a lot about genre this time and talking about some of the more cornerstone parts of anime, even if they're, a lot of people might see it as like primarily like shonen is like the cornerstone of anime, which it is to some extent, but we're going to be talking about some romance as well as the next episode, some about sports and maybe some more cinematic ones.
That is pretty true. We got very well balanced genre wise and as in being kind of exemplary within their own realms too, as well as quality wise.
It's a healthy
good
diet.
Month. Yeah.
It's a really healthy diet of anime. It's not too much of one thing. I will say these are all relatively popular shows. If you're not within the scope of anime, like I think it's a one thing to clarify about specifically like the phrase obscure and the obscure arc. My main goal is to just not talk about like the most popular shows in the world.
Yeah.
That was like my main goal was like, I don't want to talk about even some of my favorites. Like I was not ever going to talk about like Your Lie in April in this show. Or I wasn't ever going to we're going to talk about a couple of them just because they're super important to me, or like I plan on talking about them in length. Or I was never going to talk about like Attack on Titan or any shonen. It was primarily like an aversion from shonen or anything that was so popular that like took over the anime space. But our show this month, Horimiya, from my choice, was actually way more popular than people thought it was going to be. It was the manga was relatively successful, don't get me wrong, but this show really actually like took over the anime space for like a little bit. I will say, if you know any e-daters or online couples, they use this profile picture of Hori and Miyamura. I'll probably post a picture of it. It was really popular. There's a bunch of them that I saw a lot of.
Interesting. Yeah, they didn't know that. First off, obviously, I do kind of agree on the obscure part mentioned. So for us, our biggest topic was that we put unpopular animes as in like non-mainstream, not everyone's talking about kind of animes, while still sticking to somewhat palatable and above a quality type of thing.
Yeah, I've always told people that like the audience that I seek to hit is people who've seen basically tons of Ghibli, maybe an Attack on Titan, maybe My Hero, if we include Dragon Ball, Naruto,
like the most generic ones they already know.
Yeah, or maybe the ones who are like only like, oh, I think Bebop's the only good anime type people. Those people definitely exist. And to kind of open up the genre a bit more. And even if that involves anime that is popular within the anime or like nerd space, I do want to at least highlight those because I think I want to highlight the ones that are actually exemplary or very good. And Horimiya is one of those shows to me because I think Horimiya, in the realm of talking about romance anime is something that people either really love or really hate. A lot of people despise how tropey it is or despise maybe the will they won't they type stuff and all that jazz, but for me it's something I've held close to myself, and I'll talk about it more as we get into it. But
romance is definitely one of those things that has more tropes to it. That being said, I do like it. It's fun. It having its niches is not a problem for me. I can definitely see some people making problem of it, but everyone has their own taste and preferences anyways. And in Horimiya's cases, I'd say it's popular within the genre and not even necessarily within the whole anime fandom, as in like, yes, if you are somewhat interested in this type of show, I can definitely see, like you mentioned, like e-couples like using profile pictures and stuff like that, but there's a vast group of people who really don't necessarily go for like romance animes. Thus, I wouldn't necessarily consider it being being in that range of like, oh yeah, this is like a generally popular, almost everyone knows what
For
it
sure.
is kind of anime.
No, for me, I have a group of not like they're all in one group, but like kind of like amongst my friend groups, I have the like occasional like casual anime fan, and kind of whether a show independently reaches them or not without my intervention kind of gives me a barometer of like, hey, this is this popular or that popular. Like when Jujutsu Kaisen comes out, I don't need to do research on it. I know it's going to be the most like popular show in the world.
That is
like
true,
you know, I know that's going to happen. But with a show like Horimiya, it's like Horimiya, relatively young studio, all things considered, but also from a relatively large subsidiary. So let's talk about Horimiya and where it came from. Studio's Cloverworks. You may know Cloverworks from, we've covered one of their shows before with Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, as well as the rest of the series. They've also done the Persona 5 animation, Promised Neverland, Wonder Egg Priority, Spy X Family,
show.
and more recently, Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity. As you've noticed, a lot of these shows are kind of mostly slice of life, or at least have a large slice of life element. That's just kind of there's an Aniplex subsidiary, but they're originally from A1 Studios, but they've kind of become their own company since then. I believe they weren't established in 2018. This is when they became an independent subsidiary from A1. They were like originally a studio under a different name in A1, but then became their own thing. This show was produced by Aniplex, Square Enix, Mainichi Broadcasting Systems, Movic, Kanetsu Investment, My Theater DD, Global Solutions, and Mirai Kojo. Most importantly, it was licensed by Funimation. And I remember when the show came out in, as I forgot to mention, winter 2021. I watched this originally on Funimation, which, rest in peace, Funimation. I miss Funimation a lot. Even though if it had these problems, I prefer it over everything being on Crunchyroll. But this is also during the time period. I may have in the past misconstrued this being in spring 2021 along with 86 and Link Click, because this all kind of came out at the same time. And I remember I was very overwhelmed with the amount of quality anime. And Horimiya was no exception. This is originally based on a webcomic, originally called Hori-san to Miyamura-kun. This one from 2007 to 2011 with about 10 volumes. Eventually got popular enough. It got picked up as an official manga and went on by the name Horimiya from 2011 to 2021 in 17 volumes. Author is Hiro. They've also done, I think, one other manga, which was Asao-san to Kurata-kun, and this was illustrated by Daisuke Hagiwara. I may have just butchered the name of
Hagiwara,
yeah. Anyways, I might have typoed it. Most importantly, this music was done by Masaru Yokoyama, who, if you don't know, has done Your Lie in April, Fruits Baskets 2019, Mashal, Classroom of the Elite, Fate Apocrypha, and Aoashi, which weirdly enough, when we selected our anime for this month, we did not realize we were selecting an anime with the same composer.
That is true.
Relatively well-known composer in the space, like, not the most popular, right? But I would...
Does a pretty good job.
I mean, Your Lie in April soundtrack is one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. I think he has a very good ability of capturing specifically nostalgia. I think that's a lot of his nostalgia, some slice of life slow beats, and some upbeatness. But I really do appreciate his music taste. I would say he was probably in my top five. My top five most likely involving Kensuke Ushio, Yuki Hayashi, and Sawano as per usual. I think I would give the other node to Yukari Hashimoto, who has done things like March Comes In Like a Lion. But he's an incredible composer. I was a huge fan of the music in this show. That said, the sound director is Jin Atagawa, who we've covered before, who's done No Game, No Life, Your Lie in April, Kaguya-sama, Food Wars, Dr. Stone, and 86. So,
which anyone who knows any of these animes, they're pretty sound-heavy shows.
Very complex sounds, too.
Really complex, too, yeah. And creative,
yes,
for that matter. So, it's good on music plus sound department just looking at these names.
Yeah, the more and more research I've done specifically for the sound department in animation, the more I've realized, there's just a few of those guys who have their companies. Like, most of these animation studios go to a specific production company or sound company over and over again, and Jin Atagawa's company is one of them. The director, Masashi Ishihama, has done From the New World, which, if we're talking about obscure, actually an obscure show, which we definitely need to cover at some point, because it's a very interesting idea. Persona 5 animation, Garukawa Restore the World, and those were all of his directorial ones, but he's also done a lot of episode animation director, a couple of key animations involving things like Attack on Titan Season 1, Your Lie in April, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, and Tatami Galaxy. And
my favorite movie.
I enjoyed it for what it was. It's just, it's just a relatively, it's a fun movie, not much to it, though. That's the thing, not much meat on the bones.
The ending is like finding water in a desert.
Yeah.
Just kidding,
as expected, you can watch this on Crunchyroll, Hulu, Disney Plus, but as I mentioned, originally it was on Funimation. And to talk specifically about Horimiya, like, I've seen a lot of romance anime in my life. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I've seen all of them, but I've seen enough for a lifetime, honestly. But I do always find myself coming back to the genre because it's a comfort thing for me. Like, I really enjoy a lot of the beats it goes with it. I like the little ooh-woos, will they, won't they, love polygons, all the silliness in between. Like, it's one of my joys, even though I know it's a bit silly and it's a bit not realistic. I find comfort in it. But for me, Horimiya gives me more or less what I actually want out of romance anime, which is time for its characters. I'm fully aware, as I mentioned, this is an insanely popular show and is not obscure, but honestly, somehow Horimiya finds a way to differentiate itself from a lot of other romance anime by letting the relationships in the show speak for themselves. I think a lot of it we see very slow, gradual character change that makes you attached to them in a way that most other romance anime kind of stalls on in a lot of ways. As I mentioned, it's a really typical school romance anime, lots of nostalgia. It's, late aughts, early 10s, a lot of flip phones, a lot of, you can tell in like vending the sheet machine design, a couple of things,
Hey, flip phones are making a comeback. So
yeah, for sure. But it's late aughts, early 10s, Japanese touch. It's a bit more mature in tone in a couple moments. Like, you will not see a lot of ooh, ah moments in like, Horimiya, but you more or less get what you want.
But you also get a lot of like, oh, that's high school kind of.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I just think in comparison to the tone of, we'll get to it a bit more, but I compare the show a lot to Toradora, primarily because of naming convention.
Yeah.
It's a lot less tsundere, angry, throwing things at you, yelling, ooh, ah.
Well, angry part exists.
Okay, it is, sure. But it's not as the exact style.
No, I agree.
We'll get to that in a bit. Cloverworks was more or less formed to do this type of, this genre of animation. Slice of life, really pretty eyes and really pretty hair. I think one of the details that I really like talking about the show is the under part of their eyelashes. It's a really accentuated part for big anime eyes, and it really brings a lot of attention to it, but also provides a softness to them that I really like. But yeah, you've seen this with it's slice of life shows with pretty art, minimal movement. We're talking Rascal Does Not Dream, Spy X Family, Fragrant Flower, My Dress Up Darling, and Bocchi, which you saw recently.
Oh yeah.
Cloverworks is like absolutely capable of incredible animation. Like, as you've seen, as much as I dislike the show, Wonder Egg Priority has really good animation. But in my opinion, the show was always founded on its really incredible art and then intentional animation that follows. When we talked about this, I was actually a little bit surprised, when we do a pre-meeting conversation about this, that you actually really like the show and are really excited to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, with this podcast, I obviously started watching a lot more romance anime. Not that I disliked it before or anything. It's just my palette for it was not as developed.
Well, to be fair, this is probably our actual first romance anime in the pod. I know we've talked previously. We've talked previously how Rascal is like kind of a romance anime. I think a distinguishing factor I want to make is that Rascal Does Not Dream is an anime that has romance in it. And in comparison to other anime, it's a very forward part of it. But Horimiya is a romance anime, and it follows specific ideas and tropes. And the story, the main way you can understand whether something's a romance anime or not is romance the primary driving force of like most scenes and most narratives? Which the answer is yes. Even if it's like maybe more relationship-y type stuff and not exactly romance, romance is a large part of most of those relationships.
Yeah. So but with kind of kickstarting with Rascal Does Not Dream and liking that aspect of the show, I kind of wanted to see more for myself, and picked up a lot of like romance shows before we even got to Horimiya.
Yeah, just like in your free time.
Yeah, exactly. Like I mentioned this before, but My Happy Marriage is one that I've mentioned, one that I watched and mentioned on an episode we did. Fragrant Flower is actually a one that I've watched recently, very recently, I'd say. But yes, a few more shows that I can't. Blue Box
Oh, right.
is another one that I watched recently. So like, I've definitely improved my palette and knowledge of the genre, one way or another.
But your relationship with romance anime has more or less started recently. Like not it wasn't developed,
like
but
before-
it's really redefined itself, right?
Yeah, before like I'd say I've picked up maybe 2 or 3 shows entirely, like literally throughout my like years of watching anime. So yeah, obviously like watching only like 2 or 3 shows does not necessarily develop the palette for a genre entirely. So in that regard, yes, it's pretty recent. I'm enjoying my time in the genre. That being said, at this point, roughly watching closer to like maybe with movies included, like a little over 10 different like romance related shows or movies. Horimiya really did, first of all, came in like a fresh breath of air. As much as I like the trope of like, is the main characters actually like, are they actually gonna end up together?
The will they, won't they? The inevitable.
Yeah, are they gonna date? Does she like him? Does he likes her? And stuff like that. It's fun, but after a moment, if the rest of the story is not really, really that good, it can feel too generic, which Horimiya from the get-go is like, I think it's episode 2, 3. Like, they're literally in a relationship, and I was like, okay.
I think it's a little later than that.
Like
I think
maybe 5?
Yeah, I think it's 5 more or less.
But it's like, from the first episode, you develop the like pretty like immediate interaction between the characters. They get to know each other, like not know, but like, yeah, like start interacting with each other a lot more in school and in their settings, very, very fast. And around like before halfway, I'm pretty sure before halfway
for sure, yeah.
of season 1, they're already together. And I actually really like that. And that's one of the reasons why I was kind of excited to talk about the show, because the suspense is not, are they going to end up together?
I mean, part of the thing about romance anime is it's very self-indulgent as a genre. Many genres are, but anime, I think anime and like fantasy and shonens are all very self-indulgent in that. When I say that, I mean that the goal of it is to indulge in your genre conventions and be like, you should be in, like, everything else is secondary. You should just be enjoying the will they, won't they? Which sometimes works, and I think it's fine in moments, but a lot of the times these shows are built upon that. And I think Horimiya is a very intentional show. There's very few moments where I would argue there's like almost no moments where I think the show is lost in what it's trying to achieve. I think a lot of the time the show is very clear in what it's trying to do. It's very simple. Don't get me wrong. It's not trying to do anything crazy. These characters aren't revolutionary per se. A lot of them you've seen before, but I think they're done with such nice accents to them and very vivid colors to them that makes them really easy to like. Like, a lot of these characters are very easy to like. One of my favorite things about this entire show is the little color perfume effect. I call it color perfume because that's what the that's what the intro is called, and I kind of use that as an accent thing. And I really appreciate it, where it's like, you don't need to be engaged with, like, you know, it's not as obvious as like red means embarrassed, or like you know, passion, and blue means passion, or like, you know, shy and all that. Like, it's not as direct as that, but there is like a nice like accent to the scene of like, oh yes, this is kind of how they're feeling, and I like how their shots are used. It's a very enjoyable like whole like directing cinematography approach where I enjoy that they separate the characters from moments in times, and they just kind of let them feel and breathe for a bit. And a lot of other shows are so focused on the will they, won't they, or this character said this character said that, or like, you know, a lot of about the essence of the show, where Horimiya is, you know, with a topic that I've talked about a lot with interiority, is so interested in interiority and what the character wants in that moment. It's like, it'll go on for a bit and then it'll intentionally pause. And I love that so much.
Yeah, we, like, a lot of people out there who also deals with music, they would know how important giving a pause, or like sometimes they call it giving an S, is really effective of or for the piece you're playing or for the performance you're doing, both for the artist and for the audience. And I feel like that's punctuated really well in Horimiya, where first of all, it doesn't feel unnecessary, because I feel like it's very easy to make it feel like that if you just throw it around in a show, and it's just like there without any like specific reason or contribution to the storytelling part of it. And over here, I feel like, first of all, it's not overly done. It's done in a manner that it actually contributes to the scene you're watching within that moment. And they could have very easily added to other scenes, but they just didn't do so. They kind of only used it for moments that are narratively a bit more precious or important during either that episode or run of episodes.
Yeah, I think one of the most impressive things to me about Horimiya is with talking about all of this, Horimiya is like one of the most unoriginal shows if you want to be one of those people that's like that, where people go like, oh, originality is what I care about. Like, you know, I really do care about originality, but Horimiya is typical rom-com, super romanticizes high school.
It is.
And the main gimmick per se is just the unseen side of people, which if you've watched enough romance anime, it's a relatively common idea. But I think the way Horimiya does it is very pretty, and it's very nice, and it's very authentic. But overall, what makes Horimiya good is the actual details and the writing of a lot of these characters. I mean, Hori and Miyamura are both very, very likable characters because they're very human. I think how a lot of what the show is about is not just exploring their interiority, but like a lot of the quirks of personality and the clashes in relationship and how those relationships then shape us. I'm a huge fan of, like, you know, Miyamura is like one of my favorite characters like in the entire show, and I think he's a really lovable boy, and I like how he changes the whole way through. Has incredible voice acting as well. I can't remember the VA's name off the top of my head. It'll be on screen now because I hate editor Jared. But it's really nice just how you get to see a person like slowly grow. Like
Koki Uchiyama.
Oh yes, Kouichi Uchiyama is he's one of the best. He's one of the best in the industry. He's done a ton of other roles, which I will look up now because it is upsetting me. But honestly, I think the thing about
Soul Eater, Haikyuu, Jujutsu Kaisen.
I need to know who he played in them. It'll be easier in my head.
Soul Eater, Kai.
Okay, the easiest thing is he's Shigaraki from My Hero. That is the most important role. Yes. Yeah. So it's the deep, low tone. I've heard the voice a billion times. He does
Yuri from Yuri on Ice.
Yeah, Meruem from Hunter x Hunter. He's done all that. The very deep voice. You're very used to it. Very nice and comfortable. But yeah, I just really appreciate how the little details.
By the way, excuse me, y'all. I said the order wrong, so it's Soul Evans from Soul Eater. I just want to fix the mistake.
Gotcha.
Soul Evans from Soul Eater. Kei Tsukishima from Haikyuu.
Yeah, Tsukishima.
Toge from Jujutsu Kaisen, and Izumi Miyamura from Horimiya. Yuri from Yuri on Ice.
Yeah, the low, comforting voice. Yeah. That's the main thing you need to. It can be villainous at times, but a low, comforting, deep voice is what Koki Uchiyama is known for. Uchiyama is known for. But that said, I love the details in all of the characters. They're so relatable and so human. I think that, and when I say relatable, I also mean relatable as high schoolers. These are very clearly not fully developed people. And I think that's one of the most important parts of the show is that you see a lot of their growth and you see a lot of the time that they, how much they affect each other.
Yeah, I'd say like if you're a high schooler right now, I'd say watching the show, you probably can relate to a decent amount of stuff you see on the screen. And even if you don't realize it right now, well, wait a couple years.
Yeah, wait a couple years.
That being said, like for us, for example, I'd say a lot of reactions they give and like things they go through in their head, funny moments even. It's like, yeah, it just feels like high school every moment of it, which is nice. It does feel mature, like you mentioned, from like scene to scene, which I'd argue it's like every person's like lives, like our lives have more mature sides to them anyways, regardless of our age. Yes, it differs from person to person, but we all have that part of it. So it is still very much high school and in that sense kind of realistic. But it's definitely a ride. It's definitely a fun ride, which I wasn't expecting to enjoy as much as I did.
So I think what we're going to do now is I want to spend some time talking about each of the characters individually before we maybe get into a bit more spoilery type section. This show is so character focused that not giving each of these characters their flowers would be, I think, a disservice.
Yeah.
So we will start with our mains. We'll start with Hori, Kyoko Hori.
Yep.
The way that she provides, I think a lot of the times when people watch romance, the male lead is often neutral and provides less of the tone of the show than usually who your female lead is, just because of the often male gaze on the genre or just in general. But you can see this in shows like Toradora. You can even see this in Kaguya-sama. You can see this in Origairu, like a little less in Origairu, but you see this in a ton of shows where the female character's personality and attitude and kind of what they like is what manifests in the show. And so much about Hori that's different is that Hori is very atypical in that she's not weird. She's not like out of place, but she has this, she's very good at seeming normal.
Well, they're all weird.
They're all weird, but like Hori specifically is very good at seeming normal.
Yeah.
But is just a weird person in general. She has things that are just missing about her, or she has a certain cruelty about her. And I think a part that I love about her so much is that
It's just so funny.
she doesn't understand, like she's not self-aware about certain things about herself. And I think that, that's true about everyone, but she's really not self-aware about kind of like how cruel she is or kind of her personality or things she's just missing. I think she's, oftentimes you'll see her in scenes be very egotistical without realizing she's being very
Oh, I feel like she's her mother's daughter. So.
Yeah, she's very much her mother's daughter. The Horis have been terrorizing the Sengokus for generations.
That's some stuff on the show. It just cracked me up throughout the show.
It's a very funny show. Like one of my favorite parts of the show is actually a lot of the chibi art. Like first of all, like when you watch a romance anime, you expect chibis. Like that's, but I really like how it's utilized in Horimiya. It feels like it's not like an overly cutesy type thing, but it is a kind of like it's the characters are still themselves, but they are kind of accentuating specific moments and feelings.
And it definitely like adds to the scene, like when they're chibi, like you get why they're chibi during that scene. It's not just like randomly, oh yeah, we're just gonna make them cute on this scene because fans like chibi
it's often
art.
a physical action to add a little bit of extra sauce to the punchline or whatever.
But yeah, and I'd also argue like the humor is like as far as Japanese humor goes, right, is a very like generally palatable-ish humor. Like, so if you watch any type of comedy or like rom-com or anything that has humor in it that's made by our lovely beloved Japanese folk, sometimes their humor is not for everyone.
That's a way of putting it.
And I feel like Horimiya definitely like has that type of jokes, but it's also like a good margin of it is palatable by
it's
almost
relatively
everyone.
witty and very dialogue focused. Not like it's not slapstick, but it's like primarily focused on dialogue and quips. One of my favorite actual like funny moments of the show is when Ishikawa is talking to the other two, talking to Sengoku and Iura, and he's like, so yeah, me and remember how I had a crush on Hori, and then Yoshikawa, and like now I'm kind of doing a thing with Yoshikawa, and they're like, what, eh?
Yeah, that's pretty
It's a very
good.
classic, like, it understands beats and rhythms and timings very well, while also keeping the dialogue simple enough, but also elastic enough for them to kind of make a dynamic scene funny. Going back to Hori a bit, I think the way that I really think Hori separates herself from other like female leads in like romance anime is that she has a lot of weakness that it doesn't feel like is like I feel like a lot of times when the female lead has weakness, it's like solved by the other person. Where I think Miyamura does his best just to complete her, and I think just like support her. He's not trying to like fix her or do anything, or it's not based in some like. As much as I love like Kaguya-sama or even parts of Origaru, it's very much like I'm an incredible genius but a broken girl, and it's kind of like no, Hori's fine. She's just a person going through things and needs support. And I think that part about her makes her relationship with Miyamura very grounded.
She's like a hardworking, like family oriented in a sense, high schooler who's going through shit.
I mean, she has that like light trauma related to, and my favorite thing about the show is it doesn't go into the details of it because it doesn't think you're stupid. It gets like it does the thing when she's sick and it's kind of like it's like a where are you going, but she actually means please don't go. Like I don't need more details. I get it. It's very clear from her situation. She is someone who's had to be independent at a young age, and that's hurt her a lot. Like it's a very painful thing for someone if you don't know the feeling to be independent at a young age. It's very useful. It's very hard though, because you have to sacrifice a lot of things about yourself and kind of you don't get to experience certain joys. You don't get to. I mean, that's part of why when she's with Miyamura, she likes being able to be a little overly reliant on Miyamura about certain things, to be a bit whiny about certain things, which I think Miyamura
like
really allows her.
Slapping him and hitting him and punching him.
A lot of punching and hitting and yelling and all that kind of stuff and getting jealous and all that. But I think a lot of that part of Hori is like, there are some people I know online. There are some people who really don't like when like the female lead like hits the male lead. I think it's dumb. I think it's very cutesy and it's relatively
like it's
honest.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's not like genuinely. I don't think we see like if we did. I don't remember it was that like unimportant, but like I don't think we ever see like a moment where it's like an actual serious hit.
No, it's like it's very clearly I've grown up with a brother.
Yeah,
type of
it's always
brawniness.
it's always like a momentarily like playful or like.
Well, I've grown up around other guys, and I've kind of known to stand my ground. And this is my instinctual reaction. Oh wait, you don't do that too? My bad. Like. But it's part of the thing is like she wants Miyamura to hit her for other reasons. No, mind you, for other reasons.
That's the funniest thing.
But like part of it is when fucking Hori and Miyamura fucking emotionally scar those first years. By like putting them. But like that's part of it. Is that
laugh so hard.
Part of it is that fact that the miscommunication between two people is that Hori's language is more physical than Miyamura's. Miyamura is actually someone who's very physically closed off from a lot of people. Like in terms of like he doesn't have affection physically for other people like very often.
Like even throughout the show, like even his interaction with his own family, right? He is more arguably with Horimiya's family.
Hori's just Hori.
No, yeah, sorry. Went to the name. He is more with Hori's family than his own. And like every time we get to know anything about his family, it's usually a mention or like, oh, they were here.
We see them a
but
little.
They're not here anymore.
Yeah. To get on to talking about, I guess, Miyamura a bit more officially, he's very stereotypical male lead, often in romance. I watched Dangers in My Heart recently, and Miyamura does so much more than I believe it's Ishikawa from Dangers in My Heart. And it's very clear, like, depressed, she gives me my light type of thing. Like, we've seen this trope a billion times, but I think part of the tones that make Miyamura is he is not like a complete sob story. He is getting by, but you can tell there's like a certain emptiness. And like, again, I think the easiest way of describing it is a lack of color in his life. Like I think a lot
he
of
just lives in monotone.
Yeah, you see a lot of the lack of color in his life in Cut Fabi. I think the first thing is you see when he finally, like when he's at school, he looks very monotone. Like his dark hair and his dark uniform all kind of match together. But when you see him out and about for the first time, he's got the hair up, he's got piercings, he's got his tattoos out and all that shit.
Also, okay, yes, I get that, but I also get my guy. It's like coming from a school that had uniforms and stuff, like I would always, obviously he has additional reasons on top of school and social reasons, but like it also happens because of the school too. Like I was hiding my piercings and like my hair, and when I got my tattoo, like all that stuff, I can kind of feel and sympathize with him in that matter too.
I think the thing about Miyamura that's so nice though is that, again, the trauma is not aggressive. Like, yes, he was bullied. Yes, it was, he was isolated, but it wasn't. He's not a fucking sob story. He's not gonna
No.
He's very much a person who has gone through hard times and is finding the light in his life and finding things that bring him to care about other people.
And also, I'd say one of the other positive parts about Miyamura's character is that he is, like, Hori is, yes, his light, but throughout the show, she's obviously not the only one.
Yeah.
Like, she is prioritized, obviously, but he most definitely finds light or gets energy from other characters and other friends he makes throughout the show, which is like something I really like, because usually in a lot of shows, at least that I've seen, it's either only driven from the love interest, how they attach to everything around them, or even if it's not like 100% from that one character, the side characters or friends are like really subtly mentioned and referenced, and then it's just whatever. So over here, we get a lot of screen time without Miyamura being with Hori.
Yeah, the screen time economy is very, very balanced. Something that you mentioned with that is that, like, usually, like with Miyamura and Hori, it's like the two leads are the two people affecting each other. The romance is the only thing driving the plot. I would actually argue that the most important person in developing Miyamura in the show is actually Ishikawa. I'm a huge fan of Ishikawa as a character. We'll talk about him a bit more in a sec, but like Miyamura grows because he has a guy friend who's like able to be open with him and able to talk about things with him, but also that he can fight with, like quite literally fight with, and also have like this ability to
Miyamura is good at fighting.
Yes, apparently he's just a savage murderer, but like he has this ability to be open with people and make mistakes. Like, he had Shindo in the past, but it's a completely other thing with someone who gets on your wavelength a bit more, and also is in your high school, which obviously helps. But I think one of my favorite scenes in the entire show, it's very simple, so simple, but people don't get it when they've not been in a situation like that or a similar situation, is they set it up really obviously, but like Miyamura is sitting at his desk and it's like, oh, it's time for group class time, and it's just like, he's just dreading it because he knows he has to sit there for 5 minutes and wait for no one to group up with him. But then just instinctually, Hori and Ishikawa and Yoshikawa, they all just bring their desks, and there's a nice little shot from above, a bird's eye of them bringing their desks together. And it just feels like this completeness, that it's like this inherent completeness in Miyamura's social life that I think wasn't there, is something that is so precious. Like having that feeling of effortless grouped feeling, that's something that he later sees when he reflects with Sawada, who Sawada doesn't have that. And he's just like, it doesn't just come, but when it does, you'll feel it, like type of thing. It's a really important part of the show for me, is like, there's the stuff with Tanihana, which we can get with later about the rabbits in middle school. But I think a big part of what Miyamura's thing is, and, towards graduation, is just slowly realizing that, first of all, that old part of him is still a part of him, right? But he has now grown into someone who can see the larger scope of the world because of his friends and because of the relationships that have made him forced to see different things.
Yeah, he's just not like that kid who's like, obviously I'm not gonna kill myself, but if I did, would it make any difference? Kind of like, where now he's like, no, like I got people that I care, and I know there are people out there that cares about me, and like on top of it all, he's having fun now.
Yeah.
He's experiencing all these never seen or experienced moments in his life with his friends during his school time now, and actually even gets concerned whether he can continue to do so after graduation and all that stuff, which is within itself something he would never arguably consider if he just had the same like trajectory, I guess.
Yeah, the scope of his world like really, really expands. I do want to move on to talking about Toru Ishikawa, who is probably one of my favorite characters in the show. I mean, a lot of them are my favorites. Don't get me wrong. It's really hard to not have to like all of them, but like I said, Ishikawa, like if you're looking about not of the show from like the perspective of it being like a piece of media in the show, and you look about like the friend group as like quote unquote more objectively, like Ishikawa is actually the heart of that friend group. He's like the most important person. He's the one who usually is often getting things started, is often can be a good punching bag, but can also provide comfort for people. I'm a huge fan of what Ishikawa does for that group, because he provides a certain stability that is really rare. Like there's a quality about it that's really rare to see someone who's so capable at doing what is needed, even if he doesn't. The thing is, it's not that he doesn't want to. He does want to. That's the thing that I think that's so cool about him, is that he's able to be flexible for the friend group. I think that's something that's really, even though he doesn't openly say anything about it, he does value a ton. I think that's something that's really clear about his character. He wants Miyamura, Hori, Yoshikawa. He wants them to all get along and find a place that is comforting for them. Because Ishikawa could probably have just been a jock type character and been successful. He's like
For
that
sure,
popular.
yeah.
But ultimately, he cares about the people around him that care for him. And I think that's super cool. That's something that I appreciate.
I feel like he is like from outside looking to the group, he is definitely the most like, yes, we're okay with anyone and everyone who is interested and is nice about being friends and all that stuff. Like, he is the first like base of comfort within the group. And you see it, like you just mentioned, in multiple occasions, which one of the easiest and first examples that would come to my mind would be the Yanagi scene, right? He is one of the characters that joined the fan group, I'd say, later on. And like, if not the first, one of the first characters he feel comfortable with is Ishikawa.
I mean, he's the guy who reaches his hand out.
Exactly.
That's the thing. He's the guy who reaches his hand out and makes you feel like it's okay.
I'll put it this way. Ishikawa is the character who brings, if you ever played in like a school sports team or something like that, or you were like a sports club member or something, he's the guy that brings that type of like camaraderie or like friendship of like a team or being a team to a friend group. And he just gives that emotion to everyone around him, which, like you said, he wants to do it and he actually does it. Thus, I really enjoy his interactions with the world as well.
So cool about Ishikawa is he's so considerate of those. So many of those like camaraderie type people are often like, "Yeah, let's go do it. I'm an extrovert." And he's
this is
so
not
considerate about it.
No, he's not like shonen type.
I know that's what you're saying, but I'm saying like oftentimes people who bring that type of vibe, even if they're not that loud or anything, something that Ishikawa has is this consideration to the individual. I think he understands, like, you see this a lot with Yoshikawa. You see this with Miyamura at the beginning. Like, he really takes that time to consider, hey, what's wrong? I need to be here to understand your problem. Not my problem with you or anything, or like, how it's affecting the group. I need to understand your problem from your perspective.
Even like, and to be honest, I wanted to say this from the get-go, but to talk about characters, we unfortunately have to spoil some moments in the show. So like,
we'll go into deeper spoilers later, but like light spoilers, I guess.
But like that pretend relationship moment.
Oh, we'll talk about it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like he just gets the situation, which obviously he has his reasons too, but like considers the person in front of him, and also everyone knows that like, no, he's not gonna say no, like, because he's that guy.
Yeah, like, Miyamura just calls him, goes, okay.
Exactly. So, and there's like multiple moments like this throughout the show, even when they fight.
Yep.
Like with Miyamura, right? It's, you see his frustration with himself, and then also wanting to get out of the situation, and then also obviously kind of getting pissed at Miyamura as well. But like, it's still not from a perspective of like being the asshole, like
No,
jockey guy.
He's a bit of a dumbass because he's a dumbass high school guy, but he's not. He's never really inconsiderate. He's always doing his best to care. And to talk about that, first of all, to talk about specifically the fake relationship thing, when Yanagi first shows up and just blows Ishikawa out of the water, it's one of the funniest moments in the show, because honestly, it's like, again, with the humor of the show being very straightforward of just like, and another thing about the show that I love is I like how openly gay it is. And it's not gay as in like there's gay romance or anything like that. I'm not going to pretend it's that type of show, but it's...
I'll say this, the gay humor in like your boyfriend group, it very much exists in the show.
Yeah, like my thing is like a lot of the times it's like, first of all, do we need more gay romance anime? Yes, but we do. But the thing is, it's also like, it's not like ew, gayness or anything. It's just like kind of like, no, some of the guys in the group, they cuddle, or sometimes they say certain things like this or like that. And it's just like, he says, Ishikawa says about Yanagi, it's like, oh, dude, I would even date him. And it's like, yeah, because Yanagi's that good looking. And that type of stuff without being weird, it's just very natural to them. Like the whole thing, again, with Hori, like, being like, oh, please, Miyamura, if I ever lose you, please make sure it's not to a guy. I'd lose you to another girl.
Like, I'd say that type of interaction and like humor always happens in like real life high school groups as well, at least ones that are comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
And seeing that literally play out in the anime kind of like cracked me up a lot, and kind of had funny moments where I was like, yeah, I can see why they would literally on the Yanagi when Ishikawa sees Yanagi for the first time, like talking with Yoshikawa, and he's like, just fucking kill me already.
Please, I'm dying here, please.
I was like so relatable. Yeah. Like I can see that moment actually happening in a high school setting. So
yeah, I mean, as a guy who's ran cross country and has not stayed along the straight line the entire time, I will say I just love how normal, like they don't make it weird. It's just kind of like, yeah, guys do some things or maybe feel some things, and yeah, guys are pretty sometimes, and you want to just have it be out there. It's just a small little appreciation that romance anime and just in general, media in general, likes to make weird or overly focused. Like I do appreciate that it is not like, my biggest problem with media right now is like sometimes in order for proper gay representation to exist, it has to be a gay story. And no, you can have proper gay representation in a story that's not focused on gay stories. Not that we shouldn't focus on gay stories, but just it needs to be everywhere, not just in gay stories, is more or less what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you can incorporate a lot of stuff into a lot of things when you do it with proper like thought behind it.
Because I mean, Miyamura doesn't know. Miyamura might be straight. He probably is straight, but he doesn't know yet, and he might have found out at some point during the show.
Well, he kind of knows, especially after Hori is like losing her shit in front of him.
like losing her mind.
Yeah. Which is a really funny scene.
But to get back on track with the characters, Yoshikawa, this is going to be a big one. I use Yoshikawa actually as a pretty good barometer on how I feel about my friends. Yuki Yoshikawa is one of the most, if not the most important side characters in the show with Ishikawa, primarily because like, we'll talk about it a bit later, but like there is Horimiya and Horimiya the Missing Pieces. Horimiya the Missing Pieces is stuff that happened. Like basically Horimiya got made into one 12-episode season because they didn't think it'd be successful. And then it was widely successful. They basically adapted with Horimiya pieces about 80 to 90% of the manga total. So it's like they adapted about 40 to 50%, and then they adapted another 40 to 50%. But they chose Yoshikawa's arc primarily to be in there as like one of the main side character arcs. And it is really important because I think it sets the tone about first of all, how a lot of other characters feel about each other in it, but I think about the ugly side of people and the secondary side, but the hidden side of people isn't always not like a horrible, it's like, I think when people do the hidden side of like, an anime kid, they try to be like, in the day, he's like a mailman, but at night, he's a serial kill murderer type crazy person.
He's a
and
psychopath.
But it's like with her, it's just like, she is someone who smiles and does her best to hide this painful insecurity that she has of just like a lack of self-confidence and not knowing what she wants. And I think,
or wanting something.
Yeah, she just doesn't know how to, she doesn't feel like she's allowed to do a lot of things. And I think that's such a relatable thing, especially in high school. It's such a big thing in high school. And it's like, I really appreciate how honest Yoshikawa is as a character because she's doesn't do good things. I would not go as far as to say she's manipulative, but her relationship with Ishikawa is dicey at best and probably not healthy, but ultimately they're both participating in it by choice, right? And so it's not like terrible, but it's just like, she's not doing what's best for her, Ishikawa, and she's just scared and doesn't want to go out and say it. And same with Ishikawa, but it's more on her because she's kind of initiated all of this. But
Yeah, I'd say it's like 80 to 20.
yeah, like Ishikawa should say something, but she's the one who started all this and kind of wrapped him into it. And it's just like, not in a manipulative way, but just kind of like, she doesn't know, right? And I think a lot of people will see Sakura's character and go like, but why, she's stopping? No, she's not stopping Sakura. Sakura tried, and relationships are two-way streets. And Ishikawa is not necessarily interested in Sakura as much as I love Sakura as a character. We'll get to her, but
Yeah, Ishikawa made the wrong move there. But no, I'm just kidding.
Listen, I think the thing about Yoshikawa is that in the friend group, like we're talking with a lot of times we're talking about in the friend group, she provides this brightness to it. Like, a lot of characters do provide brightness, but like with Yoshikawa, she does provide a brightness, but also a certain groundingness to her. I think you'll see it a lot of the moments with a lot of the other female characters. You see it with Sakura, you see it also with Ayasaki and other things, is that she is still just like, she has this nice brightness to her, but she's ultimately still a normal girl. She's like very normal. Like, not gonna bash on Hori or anything, but Hori's a little weird and has a certain self-confidence about herself consistently. Yeah. Whereas Yoshikawa, like, Hori has some self-confidence issues, but in comparison to like Yoshikawa is the typical high school girl who is consistently questioning herself of just like, am I allowed to be doing this? What am I allowed to want? And what can I chase? I think that's such a beautiful painfulness of like, I think I was very similar in high school with my romantic relationships, where partially because of how I was raised, but like pursuing romantic relationships is a very scary thing when you don't understand them. Like, it's just like, oh, you hear romance, you hear boyfriend, girlfriend idea, but you don't understand what you're allowed to be asking for out of another person, Like, a big thing about Yoshikawa and Ishikawa is, I believe Ishikawa says a line of like, things staying this way, right?
Yeah.
It's a comfort in staying this way, but you do want more, but you do like how things are, right? So
yeah, because you have the fear of unknown, which in their case it's getting out of a pretense relationship, but not knowing if it would actually turn into a real one.
Yeah, and you can end up hurting each other in a real relationship.
And it's almost like a similar thing where a lot of people are like, but we're like, when they have like friendships and they are attracted to each other, but they're afraid of like not being friends and not having that person in their lives at all from that point on. So that they just stick to being friends and not go into a relationship. It's kind of that logic. Like, they're in this fake relationship, they're both enjoying it, but if they come out of it and then try to initiate a real one, like, would that even be the case? And would they even be friends from there on? Is like the intense fear I feel they both carry.
I think the one thing I do, again, I like about Ishikawa is Ishikawa does recognize that's what they're doing, right? Like, he does talk about it. I think
he doesn't lie to himself that like that's real at that moment.
Yeah. Like, I think he's confused and doesn't know for sure, but he's not fully lying. Like, he's not like pretending it's not happening, right? That he's in like, he does say that he's like a half weird kind of relationship. He doesn't really know. They do have that very on the nose conversation about Yuki being snow and Sakura being sakura flowers, and I'm like, man, it's so on the nose. But I think it's really nice, and like, I come to romance anime for these overly flowery type of comparison ideas, very on the nose, maybe a bit high schooly.
I also did them. Like the snow melting part with Yuki and Ishikawa.
It's really cute. I think it's a bit on the nose, but I do appreciate how honest it is about all of it. I think more or less their relationship.
It was funny too.
Their relationship kind of is about like, this hesitancy with each other. And I really love how the show depicts this like imperfect, consistently unsure. Like, they're always unsure when they're in a scene with each other, basically after the relationship or after the relationship, quote unquote, starts.
Also, I do remember you kind of mentioning that Yuki is not necessarily a well-liked character.
Yeah, she's my barometer character because there are some people who don't like her because it's like Sakura deserves it, because in a shipping culture type thing, a lot of people like the character that puts in more effort. I like her as a character.
The only moment where I was like, yeah, she as a person, this is not a critique to the anime. I feel like this is actually pretty good for the show in general, is where she's taking away the choice from Ishikawa when she lies to Sakura. about them actually dating.
Yeah.
That's a selfish act to do, which that's why they've put it in the show.
Yeah.
But that was the only moment where I was like, yeah, that's kind of like a
Doing bad
dick
things
move,
doesn't make you a bad person.
Exactly,
Especially when you're in high school.
And
it's not like she's a mass murderer, folks. She just lied about a relationship
Exactly.
because she's confused.
And we talked about this with you prior to this pod episode as well, where I'm pretty sure anyone who went through puberty basically and went to high school probably did something in the lines of what Yuki did. And if you are saying you didn't, you're probably lying to yourself.
No, I did it for a friend. I lied about it for a friend. I didn't do it for myself because I was not as romantically involved in high school, but I definitely 1000% lied for a friend about it.
But I'm not even talking about romance. Like being a teenager, like regardless of the reason, regardless of the subject at hand, we all do pick some things over others, do some, like, I guess, pink lies or whatever. Like, it happens. It's not the end of the world.
I will say I did really like the scene where Yuki, I think to wrap up with her, I think my favorite thing is that when she takes the cookie and she's about to throw it away, and then she eats it, and she's like, it's kind of a nice depiction of like, I don't hate you as a person, right? Now that I know what you are, like you're like, I don't hate you, but I don't want you here because I don't want you around Ishikawa type of thing. And this conflicting feeling. And to get to talking about Sakura, I fucking love, like, it's hard to not love Sakura as a character. She is like the older sister of the group. She has her shit.
The best.
She has her shit together, but at the same time, she has her shit together because she's the big sister showing that to everyone. But she's the most professional. She has all these things. But then I think one of my favorite moments, spoiler, is when she finally breaks down and lets herself cry about Ishikawa. It's like, and then Sengoku comments, this is, I think, the first time I've really seen someone my age, as in a high schooler, not really his age, but a high schooler, just break down and cry. And I think that vulnerability that Sakura adds to the show with her romance or feelings for Ishikawa is like really valuable, because I think it shows that these friend groups, when these kind of feelings come up, become tense because of that, and have, even if it doesn't cause a fracture in the friend group, it can really change people and how they feel. And I think Sakura really grows a ton over this entire show.
She does, and I really like her as a character. She, first of all, she's a blast. To be honest, some moments where she is like just more like monotone as a reaction.
Man. Yeah, she's a straight man in the group.
Is hilarious to me. Also, sometimes she playing the mother role is like a really good balancer.
Yeah, specifically
for all the gimmicky stuff.
Specifically in Pieces, I do love that she finally grows out of her shell a bit more in terms of you get to see some of the memories and chapters that were cut, specifically with the cooking scene.
Yeah,
I love that as well. As well as also her one time she gets to be childish is over Manga, which I love. Yeah. I obviously love so much.
And also, she's always, whatever she does, she's always considerate about other people, right? Like, because you could argue like her immediate fan group is Sengoku and Remi.
Yeah.
And which are other student council members. But even when the group expands, regardless of her liking Ishikawa, she cares for everyone. And we see this in season 2 as well, where she gives chocolate to Yuki, she gives a box of chocolate to Yuki, and Yuki thinks like, oh yeah, I'll give it to Ishikawa, and she's like, also look in the bag too, and just goes away, says nothing like extreme. And when Yuki looks, there's a bag of like chocolate for her as well. So she's like always caring and like trying to be in touch with everyone around her, which is like a really appreciated thing.
Yeah, out of anyone in the show, Sakura is someone who in her career is going places. Whether I think that there's a certain maturity about her, and there's a tragedy to her, but there's a certain maturity because of that tragedy about her that it's really great to watch. Because even though someone like Sengoku seems very mature because he's a student council president, he's a bit more babied in as a kid. Without Sakura, the group just in general falls apart. She provides a stability. I would say I align a lot with in terms of how I function in a friend group too, Sakura. Kind of just willing to. She takes a lot of blows in order to make the friend group work, and I think I really appreciate how she's willing to be. But again, it's that tragedy about her that she's also silently not living her best life. I think still. I think that's the part. Like I think she slowly gets better and gets closer to it. But she does have a dip in the show, not just because of the romance, but I think also just because of the nature of where she's at in her life,
That is true, yeah. She definitely, I'm kind of doing the quick rerun of the show in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say she's definitely one of the characters where you see a bigger dip in attitude and in her circumstances throughout the show. Like each character has something little here and there, but Sakura's part, you see it front row. And it's not subtle.
I mean, when you don't the whole thing with her not feeling pretty, right?
That's true.
It's a really hard reality of just
her.
She has friends, but she is constantly put down, and just people like her. But because of the nature of high school, she is put down for the sake of being put down.
And her reaction to Remi and Remi being this bubbly, really cute, considered persona in the high school environment, and she being best friends with her, but in her eyes being nowhere near her in status is really tough pill to swallow for her.
Real talk, when Sakura tells her, Remi, you don't get it.
Yeah.
I've had to tell that to friends before. You don't get it. I know you don't care and you think it's fine for us to be friends. No, you don't get the pressure that I feel, and you don't get the eyes that I feel and how I'm treated differently. I think that dip in Sakura alongside the stuff with Ishikawa is just such a realistic time of I think the show does romanticize high school a lot, but at the same time does give enough space for the parts of high school that fucking suck.
Which the biggest thing is, which I'd say it makes it even heavier, is that Sakura is not a not pretty character as well.
Okay, all the character designs on the show, fire.
Exactly.
Listen, you can comment about the hair designs being oh, they're all different colors and it's just a typical. No, first of all, lower lashes look great. Eyes are very intentional. They're all designed very well. I love character design so much.
And anyone in that group, when you look at other characters, anyone in that group, including Sakura and different characters throughout the show, also says this in the show as well. She is someone who actually stands out, looks wise as well. It's just that A, she doesn't display herself like that. B, she is in that kind of isolated mindset where she is different and she is never going to be as
her self-confidence
beautiful
was shot a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. Or whatever as Remi or Hori or Yuki, and it's that's the harsher part of her dip. But kind of seeing her getting better and cooking and start caring for everyone in the group, all that stuff is also a really nice addition to her character and what we get to see throughout the show.
I think the best way to wrap her up is she's a character who's mature enough to make amends. Even though nothing really went wrong per se, she's mature enough to be with both Ishikawa and Yoshikawa, and even with Remi, to kind of be no, we're going to be friends still. We're going to make this work. To talk about, I think most of these characters are going to be kind of shorter sections. I think we talked about most of the mains. Talking about Sengoku, and I think we'll throw Ayasaki in here as well, Remi. But I like both of their arcs. I think they're both fine. I would say in comparison to how bright the rest of the leads are, I would say Sengoku's lack of self-confidence and kind of all that type of stuff. I feel like he's played a lot of comic relief more so, and it's hard to fully take him seriously.
I did kind of laugh pretty decently, especially on season 2, box carrying scene where they were trying
that's
to.
rough, buddy. Below Yoshikawa, that's rough, buddy.
Yeah. That was genuinely funny.
My funniest scene is when he first gets headbutted by Miyamura, and he sees him the next day, and he's just like scarred, and then it gets played back again later. And I love it so much. But I think both of these characters are primarily, they have serious things about them, and they have like, Ayasaki has this certain desire to kind of be loved in a certain way by Sengoku, and Sengoku has this certain lack of self-confidence. But I think they're not as highlighted in that regard, and they're kind of filling out their friend group a bit more.
I do like Remi is kind of like a bulldozer when it comes to breaking the formality within the group. I'd say her biggest role is that, where like she because at the beginning of this show, right? This is not necessarily like a big friend group, like one big friend group. No. It's like small like squadrons or like hubs of like friend.
You got the Miyamura, Hori, Ishikawa clique. You've got student council clique, and then you've got Iura who comes in occasionally, Yanagi who comes in occasionally.
Exactly, and stuff like that. So she is arguably one of the first, like, I guess, wild bullets going out there and kind of interacting with everyone, and then breaking that social formality situation, kind of forces everyone to address her by her first name and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And in that sense, she actually is pretty helpful for the group, but that's basically most of her.
I mean, being the little sister of the group has its moments. Like, they want to take care of her. They, like, a lot of the times, like, there's like one scene where like Remi gets upset because Sengoku doesn't want to go to her house, and then everyone's like, "Fucking get him, get him!"
That's
and stuff like that. Where I think they're important parts of the group of how they play the tone, right? A lot of what there's a nuance and understanding about the tone of friend groups of relationships that are made, of just general group dynamic, that is really important for Sengoku and Remi to be a part of. But I think they are, as characters, just given a bit less time. A character that's actually given more time than them, weirdly enough, like if you think about it, is Shu Iura, the green hair kid. He's actually given quite a bit of time, kind of about.
I like Iura.
I'm a big fan of Iura. I think one thing where you can tell a writer is a good writer, or also has written this story well, is you can see that a lot of these small parts of a character, like if you take all certain small parts of all of these characters and you put them all together, it's probably the writer, right? And I think you can see a piece of the writer, them being in Iura. I think primarily I would say it's his like outwardness and like when he's at school, but then when he's at home, he's just, nope, I'm serious. I care about my sister, and I'm also really stern, surprisingly. And I think that's super. It's a bit more of the dramatic shift between the others, but I think you do see that a lot. Like, with a lot of guys, like I think I had a small phase of it where it's like I tried to be extrovert and outward because it was like the right thing to do. And then
and it also something that happens more naturally too. It depends on your dynamics and relationships you get with other people. Like I feel like Ira is a really good example of someone who is flexible as personality, not necessarily doing it at the sake of being like that way, but
no, I don't think it's forced.
It's like he's a character where you see that because of the different environments he's in, he shifts into what's like required per se.
Yeah.
And at school, it's that like comedic / like extra worded kind of, I guess, pain reliever in a sense.
He's
like
a class clowny type guy.
Yeah, like clowny, like gestury kind of personality. Where at home, which we get from her family, like kind of like an old grandpa, and relatively absent parents, filling in that gap of like playing an older brother and like the person who's responsible within the house kind of thing, especially now since he also happens to have a younger sister who goes to middle school.
Yeah, I love Motoko. I love her
Yeah.
and her relationship and then how she...
Their relationship is really nice. It's also funny that she's not aware of like him
Until the
having
very end.
yeah, like him having different like approaches to social environments. So like when she talks to Hori, she's like, oh yeah, I guess we're really similar. Like we're both quiet and like not too loud. And Hori's like, what the fuck? Like this dude screams all the time and all that stuff. So
I think one thing I really love about Iura as a character is just how intentional a lot of his things are, even though his stupidness is like, it seems really like, whoa, he's just being silly and dumb and not like, I think he's a character, he understands that like part of it is that he wants to have fun at high school, right? Like, that he wants to have fun at high school, so he wants to let loose and do certain things, but at the same time he also knows that he wants, like, I don't think there's anything said explicitly about this, but it's almost like he's a guy who wants to make sure that his sister can go to college even if he can't, right? That type of thing, right? Like he thinks that his sister is probably more capable than him, and it should probably be given that opportunity per se.
He's a person that who wherever he can have fun without like, let's say, damaging, for a lack of better word, for the general outcome of his and his family's and friends' lives, he does. But then where it's more important, that like it's where it's more important than having fun, he switches and actually gets on top of shit.
Yeah. I think
Which, like you said, within itself has that kind of melancholic, kind of sad touch
but
to
at the
it.
same time, he's also, according to Sengoku, the lost cause who wears his hoodie to school all the time.
And it's true.
I think
But someone likes him for that.
I think my favorite thing that I always think about when I see Sengoku, is Iura. It's also a very gifable show, by the way. Horimiya is a very gifable show, but it's what he sees Miyamura with his new haircut for the first time. He goes, oh, holy shit. And he just hits that's the first thing I think of when I think of Iura. I really, again, one of the most important things to talk about with all these characters is they're pieces to each other as a friend group, right? They build a friend group together. They're not, when it's not just the independent, it's about also, like, we could spend forever with the show. Like, let's talk about Iura's relationship with Sawada. Let's talk about Iura's relationship with Miyamura. Like, you could talk about the specific and details about so many of the intricacies between the friends.
Yeah.
To get to, I think we'll have our last, like, kind of main, and then we'll talk about two other characters that are important to the show.
Yeah.
Yanagi. Yanagi gets introduced a little bit later into the show, about episode 7-ish, I believe.
Yeah, Handsome Boy 2.
Handsome Boy 2, Pretty Boy 2.
Pretty Boy
and
2,
I think my favorite thing about Yanagi, I mean, Yanagi's whole dynamic is that he's a bit too formal. He's a bit estranged from people. Like, you know, sure, he's got the whole, like, I'm blind, not really type thing. You know, it's hard for me to see whatever. But he struggles to get intimate with people, right? I think my favorite part about that journey is when him and Miyamura become competitive about it. And there's this kind of like, yeah, actually, the way you get intimate with people is not always like, hey, let's talk. I want to understand you. It's kind of like no, sometimes you get to know people because you clash with them for very stupid reasons. I had a friend like this in high school who was just like, you're competitive about things for stupid reasons. I fucking hated his guts. I know that Miyamura and Yanagi don't hate each other, but like, you know, the way you could get to know people better is not always just as simple as just like, hey, let's talk. Let's get to know. Let's spend time together. I think this idea that, hey, we're both the pretty boys in the group. They're not thinking that, but we're both the pretty boys in the group. And we need to see who's better between the two of us.
They do think that. At some point, they actually do think that.
They do both kind of think that, yeah.
That's so funny that everyone else thinks that too. So it's like whenever someone brings, like in season 2, when the girl who likes Iura mentions
Oh, yeah.
what was that girl?
Sawada? Talking about the girl who likes Hori? Or
No, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
When she mentions that to Sawada immediately goes to like Yanagi and Miyamura because they're the pretty boys of like third year students.
Yeah. You're talking about Iura?
Yeah, exactly. And then she is surprised as heck because she's talking about Iura, but you know, they're very much the mascots of that.
Well, specifically Yanagi,
group,
what I love about Yanagi, he's also the rare Pokemon of the friend group, where it's like he shows up maybe once every 4 occasions. Not that rare, where like, it's a special occasions, Yanagi's even here. And I think that's that way that they value him and how they include him. Because again, he's a bit distant, don't get me wrong, and I think he doesn't know how to do it exactly. I think there's a great part in season 1 where Yanagi and Yoshikawa see each other, and then her sister goes, "Oh, I bet you, yeah, like you turned her down." It's like, "Oh no, she turned me down." And she's like, but like
she's like, what the fuck? You
yeah.
turned this down?
Yeah, but I think also Yanagi is kind of just this incessant, like even in being rejected and seeing her in like just out about, he's just so distant. He just kind of like doesn't know how to be like, he doesn't know how to get to know her even. I think it's like this, he's missing the first couple of steps. Like, when he catches his stride, I think he's fine, but it's almost partially because of his prettiness that people stay away from him, that he's lacked this ability to interact with other people. Because he's probably because of a little bit of his disposition, but also just how he's placed socially,
True. Yeah, which is also like a very different, weird spot to be in for him.
Yeah.
Kind of giving off that, like, in a different way, that like ice queen, like, the ice queen trope in animes. Like, it's obviously Yanagi is not like that, but he's so pretty and like well looked and like almost like noble looking, I guess, that everyone is just hesitant to approach him.
Yeah, he's treated like an object sometimes more than a person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because even like we said, the sister is like, you turned this down, and like Hori is like, wait, you said what to this guy?
Yeah.
Like everyone is going crazy. Or even Sakura, like when he mentions to Sakura that like glasses don't look good on him.
Like, anything would look good on you.
Anything would look good on you.
Yeah.
What the heck are you talking about?
Yeah.
So stuff like that. Yeah, that's definitely like a in a sense tough spot for him. Also, maybe we can ship him with Yuki's sister now.
That's crazy.
Well, you never know. He did buy her coffee.
I would ship Yanagi with Sakura more. Primarily because I want Sakura to be happy, but I don't know if Sakura would be happy with Yanagi. I think both of them would bit too distant. But regardless, I usually do this with characters like Sakura. I ship Sakura with happiness. I want her to just be happy.
Yeah, no, I agree.
To talk about two characters, well, let's talk about them as characters and more about their story arcs. So we're talking about Tanihana, the guy who bullied Miyamura in middle school, then gets the living shit beaten out of him by Hori.
That's the funniest thing, yeah.
And then, but I do think there's a certain,
he treats her like a summon.
Like a summon. I do really love Tanihana's kind of having to come to revelation that someone is different now. I think we see that I think honestly it happened more to me. I think I've talked about this before, but I had a lot of people from my high school went to my college as well. And I remember my first day at college, I had made friends through Super Smash Bros. Melee, shout outs. And I remember all of my high school friends were sitting at one table by themselves, just only knowing other high schoolers, where I was sitting at a table with like some of my dorm mates, some Melee players, like relatively large group of people. And as you know me, I'm not a social butterfly, but it's just like kind of getting to know people in college and doing my thing. And I remember being like, these people, when they look at me, probably don't understand how to talk to me anymore because I'm not the same person in their eyes. And I think that's the realization that Tanihana has, is that or more like a lack of wanting to have that realization. He just really doesn't want to admit that Miyamura is different now. Like, partially upping his defense, but also just like he is someone who, first of all, is just no longer the person that, he's got the guilt, obviously, of like, he's the one who killed the rabbits, not Miyamura, but more so about, this is someone who I don't really understand, right? And it confuses me to some extent.
Well, I don't have a lot to say about him. I got really pissed because I don't necessarily like bullies regardless. On top of like he is the one doing the mistake to add on sprinkle that rainbow sparkles on it, but
push blame. I think it's a human thing. I understand why he's obviously not supposed to be a liked character, but yeah,
but like regardless of the first negative opinions I have towards him, later on, kind of him working through why he did what he did, and Miyamura being the bigger person, allowing him to improve that relationship they have and kind of turn it into a friendship, and not necessarily like a like a sorry kind of like weird like connection. Like,
Anyone can be friends, according to Miyamura.
yeah, exactly. So that type of stuff, it is a really nice small addition to the show. So I did enjoy that.
I like a lot about how Tanihana pulls things out of Miyamura from his past and kind of forces him to be like, no, I'm different now. I'm still that kid, but I'm also different now. And I think that's the most, again, a lot of what this show is about is less about the characters in isolation and more about what they're bringing out of each other, right? I think Tanihana's, flavor is, or Tanihara, I think is what it is. It's either Tanihana or Tanihara, but he provides something to Miyamura in terms of facing his reality. The last character we're going to talk about before, I think we're just going to talk about spoilers straight up after this, is Sawada, who we see as this annoying, again, openly gay character. And, she does have some stuff with that other girl at the end, but character who has a lot of tragedy related to her. I think Sawada is the type of character who holds on to a linchpin of one thing of like liking Hori, making it her personality, kind of to hide a lot of the struggle she faces.
Yeah, she is.
And I think I really love the third years for taking her in. Not fully, like, because she still struggles with that social dynamic thing, but I love seeing that type of like almost taking her in as like a lost child type thing relationship, because I think Sawada is very indicative of a lot of people probably before they because the third years in high school, don't get me wrong, they're still in high school, but they are closer to having to realize their shit. When you're in a second year in high school, and for those of you who don't have context, in Japan, second year of high school, you have a bit more time to decide things. Like third years, you technically should just be studying. You kind of already know, quote unquote, your career path. And it's kind of when you're answering career surveys type, like you answer career survey in year one, but it's kind of only taken so seriously. But then in year two, your career survey is really important. And then year three, it's like, okay, you better fucking know by now. Yeah. And I think Sawada is that great point of like, I really should know more by now, but I don't. And I'm so lost even in my social life. And I think, part of that is for the fucking terrible tragedy of losing her brother, right? But also is that she's just very lost socially, in that in high school, it's so easy. It's so easy for parents. I say this as an Asian kid, obviously saying because of parents, but so easy for parents to just be like, focus on your studies, do your thing, like, focus on your future, when it's so suffocating to be in school. And I think that's a lot of what Sawada feels, which is, reflective of old Miyamura as well, but also how suffocating, just like, one thing that's really cruel about girls is they make friends quick. And then when they make friends, that's it. That's the friend groups are decided. And I think that's a really painful thing that Sawada faces, is like the reality of high school girls. And there are ways of opening it up, because she does, but really struggling to do so.
And it's the messed up part, right? Like probably the reason she couldn't more than likely get into a friend group immediately, because she was just not in the headspace. So since she fucking lost her brother, but there is no like such thing of explaining that to other like friends, possible friends, and kind of like, I don't know, get into a group or something, or like almost ask them to wait. Like it's not the environment. So there's nothing she could do, but like it's like a desperate situation ultimately, like, because there's nothing she can do, but it's not necessarily something she could also blame on others as well.
It's not like these people can just be like, you know what, because your brother died, we're going to take you in and, nourish you even though you're not able to. Like, would be nice if they did that, but it's a bit much. I said I was not going to mention Journal with Witch, but this is kind of the perfect situation to mention Journal with Witch, is that the premise of Journal with Witch is that the main character loses her parents. And at the end of her, like, she's trying to get to graduation. She just wants no one to know that her parents have been lost, but it kind of gets out there that it does. And she's like, I just wanted to leave high school normal. And it's like, that's probably kind of maybe something similar to what happened. Is like, because Miyamura doesn't know. And it seems like, I would hope that other high school girls are not bullying her after knowing she lost her brother a year ago. I would hope, and for good God, that was not the case. But anyways.
Well, that's what I was going to say, though. There's a really high chance that other people don't know to begin with. So,
and it's just an isolating tragedy that she has to experience.
And that's why I was like saying there's nothing they could do, because in their eyes, it's just a gal who doesn't care to socialize with people. Yeah. But in reality, the situation is drastically different.
Sengoku has a line, and this is actually about Yoshikawa and Sakura, but it's more like nobody's wrong here. And I always talk about this. When nobody's wrong in writing, it's usually a good thing.
Yeah.
Usually you want your characters to make sense. As fine as it is to occasionally have an evil villain who maybe has flawed logic or whatever, but like in general, your goal a lot of times, especially in interpersonal slice of life here type shows, drama shows, you want nobody to be wrong. You want it to just be messed up circumstances, because that's honestly what life is.
And there, he also mentions like they're all high schoolers. We're all high schoolers, which coming from a molester, that's a...
Be careful with saying that without people knowing the context of the show.
No.
Sengoku just attempts to grab someone and hug them, and then someone uses a stronger word to describe it because it's awkward.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to tickle hug people,
yes, he doesn't know the tickle hug, and he makes it all weird, and Ishikawa's like, that was too sensual. Don't do that.
Ishikawa's like, are you a molester? Like, what the heck are you doing? And then there's this whole like comedy bit with that, which is funny. But jokes aside, like, it applies for the whole show. They're all high schoolers, and in a lot of cases throughout the show, nobody's at fault.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just the situation you're in.
Yeah.
There are there multiple, or is there one? Let me super quickly check from my end. Yeah, I think there's just one more character that I'd say
who did you want to mention?
Decently important. Is Shindo.
Oh, Shindo, yeah.
Miyamura's
his former light.
Yeah, his first like friend, I guess, his only friend in middle school. That we could argue that is maybe the only reason he was able to held on to some stuff he did during that period. And I'm not gonna go into like crazy like details or whatever, but he's basically the reason that he can A, go through those years, B, when he becomes the person he is in high school, he can still look back and make peace with who he is, and obviously acknowledging the relationships he built and the relationships he's building right now. I feel like Shindo is a really good gateway to him self-improving and self-exploring, as well as kind of acknowledging that he was that person. It's just that he wasn't aware of it.
Shindo is the government-mandated extrovert to the introvert, into the depressed introvert. What I love about Shindo so much is Shindo is, first of all, to be clear, Shindo is the person who loves Miyamura the most in the show. It's not Hori. Hori has a ton of competition because it's everyone in her household is competing with her. Low key, like, I would argue even Ishikawa is probably competing with her, but like honestly, it's Shindo. Kyosuke is competing with him hard, but I would argue it's Shindo. Like they always talk about like Tanihana's. This is right before the I don't want to lose you to a guy type thing. It's like, she's like, Tanihara, why do you keep cuddling? It's like, oh, please, you should see what he does with Shindo. And it's like,
oh, not even that. If he said that, it would be good. He is like, at least I'm not Shindo.
Yeah.
And Hori is like, what the fuck does she mean?
Yeah.
And then she does the bit. But
yeah, I love so much about how, because Shindo's the type of person who can be friends with anyone type thing, but he understands. Loki is a bit of a fictional character when I say this, but like Loki understands he's an important friend to Miyamura, and so he prioritizes that relationship. I think most people don't do that, and I think it's really nice that Shindo does, but I think most people don't do that. And but I do think I really appreciate how, again, he's a bit similar to Iura, where he's he can seem airy and like, airheaded at times and unintentional, but he is pretty intentional about, spending the time with the people that matter to him.
He is. And you definitely get that feeling from us seeing his other relationships as well. Like, he's definitely not tailored to Miyamura, but he is very deliberate and considerate about the relationship they have. But yeah, I think other than Hori family, which they're all really fun and good comic reliefs, that was the only character that I wanted to add into that batch.
Cool. So we'll just get kind of this will be like more like raw spoilers. We're not only going to be talking about spoilers, but I want to talk about a couple of random things. The first thing I did want to talk about is my favorite scene from this entire show, or like sequence of scenes, whatever you want to call it, is when Miyamura leaves for a couple of days. And Hori is kind of, I think some of my favorite things about it is that she's occasionally buying drinks for two, and it's like, she like waits outside of the classroom. She's like, you waiting for someone? And it's like, no. And it's like, oh, right. Miyamura's not here. I'm not waiting for him. And it's like, grabbing extra things for dinner, like, all that kind of stuff. And she becomes very excited to see text messages and all that stuff. And then my favorite scene is the elevator scene where it's like, Miyamura finally turns his phone back on, because the whole thing is that Miyamura's phone dies during this trip, right? And so he can't text Hori, and it's like she feels how long 5 days feels, right? Of just not being around Miyamura. And then when the phone gets back on, he just runs to the elevator, sees her and hugs her and all that stuff. And she says, I didn't know how long 5 days could be. And I think there's such a beauty in how when you have someone important like that in your life, your experience of legit like just space time is different, of what you value, care about, what your habits are. You don't realize how different they are when that person is gone, kind of against your knowledge. Like, she knew he'd be gone, but like she didn't know how long. She didn't know she wouldn't be able to text him. And it's like, I will say, when you're used to being able to text someone and then you can't text someone, it's a very, very different. Like when they're like gone, it's like, I'm gone for like 5 days or whatever. And then you think you might be able, like, I don't know how available I'm gonna be. You text them, you keep texting them. It's like empty text, empty text, empty text. And it's just like, there's such a human nature part of it that is just like a longing that is, similar to your name, but a longing that is just like, you're trying so desperately to fill the gap, right? That's missing. And you're either sending empty texts or thinking about them, or you're doing things you don't, it's just all of that. I think is such a beautiful part of the show, of just like, again, how much Miyamura has affected Hori, I think against her will, obviously not in a bad way, but just like kind of like
that is true.
That kind of shaping, informative experience of relationships, right?
And in that regards, actually a scene that I like is closer to the end of season 2 is the scene where Sota and Kyoka. So Hori's little brother and Kyoka, they both cry. Where like you get to see, I'm just gonna use Sota and Kyoka because they're both Hori at this point. Like you get to see the side of Kyoka. Like we always see her being like childish and kind of like getting agitated and like being physical and stuff. But then within that scene, we have a couple more scenes like that. But on that scene, literally, very blatantly, you see that like she often reacts the way she does, not because she's like a dickhead or whatever. She's actually thinking the best for the person in front of her, but does not know or is not mature enough yet to convey it in a different way.
I mean, I like how she says that, I don't like you when you're not on my side.
Exactly.
Right.
And that really shows you, like, on a foundational level, who her character is.
Yeah.
And then like the comedic relief where like they both hug Miyamura and start crying, like that scene from like a more serious emotional tone to comedic relief. I think that's actually one of my favorite
it's super
scenes.
well, but I think, again, we talked about this story. It's like she was forced to grow up, and she's not been allowed to make childish decisions or mistakes in that regard. And she's kind of, with Miyamura, is allowing herself to be selfish, which is what a relationship is you should allow yourself to kind of do things and understand kind of like what your, kind of more and more like you're allowing yourself to be just who you are. And even if that's flaws, a lot of times you try to present yourself as like really polished, or things you've not explored yet. You kind of do have to go down that route. And she's, whether she likes it or not, going to end up in conflicts where she wants Miyamura to be on her side, but it's like, well, I also want what's best for you, right? And that might not be, quote unquote, being on your side.
Which I also like that part of that scene too. Yeah. Miyamura being in a relationship, going to the extent where they're planning to go, openly says that like, I'm always on your side, but
Yeah.
there will be moments where I will get angry to you and I will tell you that, and I won't just be on your side just to be on your side. So overall, I feel like that's a really like minute long snippet from the show that kind of elaborates on the dynamic of the relationship they have really well. It's like a subtly beautiful moment in my opinion.
I think another thing I love about the show, they're talking about that balance, is the show, we've talked about all this serious stuff, but it does also some great classic things. It does a candy kiss, like, you know, candy in the mouth.
It does, yeah.
That's a classic. I've seen it with candies and pills. They do toast in the mouth running. Even if they're making fun of it the whole time, right? They do a ton of these like gimmicky type things, you know.
Miyamura's food is banger.
Yeah.
He comes in with like a hot bun and like a tea.
He's just like, what do you mean? Yeah.
I was like, that's a man with a palate.
I also completely forgot to talk about this. The show does also some occasional widescreen stuff, which I love, as you know, with Link Click being full widescreen. I love also, especially with things like animation where it's a bit more flexible in general, being able to swap between widescreen and like, you know, intentionally using your format as needed. Another thing we completely didn't talk about too much in detail was the music. I fucking love this soundtrack. I think we've kind of discussed, I like it a bit more than you do. Like, we have some of our highs, like, you know, 86 or Link Click. I would argue Your Name as well. But I think this is up there with them. I maybe not as high, but I really love a lot of the leitmotifs, and I like a lot of the sound font specifically. It's very nostalgic. It's very cozy lo-fi, but bright in the moments it needs to be. I think it's also very suited for a ton of the characters. It's such a diverse soundtrack.
It's really good. It does its job pretty well. And even though you didn't like me saying that, I did kind of put this above Link Click.
Oh yeah, geez.
But yeah, it certainly knows what it should do.
For me, primarily, it's the motifs I think are really strong in a lot of the soundtrack of, I think, the entire show. Another thing is that the show is very seasonal. Like most romance anime is seasonal, right? But I do really appreciate the passing of the seasons of like you really feel summer and how that dictates the relationships in spring and winter, and it really defines where these characters are going and all that stuff. It's a very classic thing. And another thing is the ultimate, as we get to the near end of the show. Another thing I want to say is if the negative amount of Trails fans who are also watching this, it has a very Cold Steel 1 quality to it, as in it also has a very Persona quality. It's high schoolers having a fun dynamic, and they're all hanging around each other, and I really appreciate how well developed the group friend dynamic is. And I don't know why I wanted to call it the Cold Steel 1 quality, but it is. But as we get to the end of the show, talking about the one happenstance that changes your life, right? I think that's the big thing with this show, is you see both in the end of the original, but also in Pieces, the two kind of shifting ways of like how if they never met, what it would be like, you know, right? And what might be missing, you know. I think the beautiful way to talk about Horimiya as these two seasons, which is I think done not intentionally at first, but done incredibly smart, is that Horimiya is talked through in Miyamura's perspective, while Pieces is actually through Hori's perspective a lot more, especially the endings, and kind of how Miyamura, right? He has this like, you know, I've, you know, come out of the darkness and found my light, whereas with Hori, it's like I found this missing piece from my life that was missing, right? Like this thing that I didn't know I needed, because Hori has a lot going on in her life, but this thing that she didn't realize that, again, partially because of how she had to grow up.
It's gonna be like kind of a meme-like thing, but it's the classic stuff where people are like, not the thing we wanted, but the thing we needed, in a sense. So like from Hori's perspective, Miyamura is literally that. Like, she doesn't know that
I didn't know I needed a long-haired otaku in my life.
Exactly. But yeah, and I do agree. Like, kind of seeing that specific scene where she's sleeping, he's dozing off.
Okay.
First season, it's his perspective. Second season, it's her perspective.
I love what they did with Horimiya in Missing Pieces. I love the dynamics they played. I know, would it have been great if they did a 24 episode season? Sure. I think this is the best they could do, considering what they were given. I think it's absolutely the best they could have done.
That, like, I told this before off record, but yes, if it was 24 episodes, it could have added a bit more depth within that moment to characters and relationships. But by no means, when you watch it as is right now, you're like, oh, this needed to be one season. Like the way they developed pieces and how they basically wrapped up with the ending and how everything connected to each other. It's very nice, very well executed.
The reason I like the show so much is how fast paced season 1 is. I really appreciate how fast paced it is. I just it's so good. Talking a little bit more about the ending is just Miyamura finally looking at his other self and the idea of graduating. I think that is something I love, is this idea of finally kind of growing up and accepting certain parts of yourself. It's just it's really beautiful. That said, I do want to get your take on this. So we've been talking about romance anime, we talked about romance anime genre a bit. Would you consider this the best romance anime you've seen? And when I say romance anime, as we've discussed, I'm not including things that have romance secondary things. So even stuff like Your Lie in April, I would not consider a romance anime. Even something like, I don't know, what else would I not describe as a romance anime? This website has, for Mal, it has even like Sword Art Online as a romance anime, which I don't think you would, but...
That's the best romance anime I've seen,
But talking about romance and romance first anime, would you say this is the best romance anime you've seen?
This is for sure the easiest I've watched a romance anime, as in like not knowing what comes with next episode and actually being curious to which direction they're gonna pull the story. As in the best, I think we had a similar conversation like this as well. I was kind of comparing this to Fragrant Flowers. And I'd say that would be probably my answer to this question as well, which was, even though there are really good romance animes that I've seen, and I'm sure that I've yet to see, Horimiya approaching the whole relationship aspect of this story, like the way it approaches it, and that it kind of, takes a new direction towards how we build the dynamic, would be definitely the most pleasant show that I've watched so far.
Yeah, the thing I use...
Like I said, it's a fresh breath of air.
The thing that I use to answer this question is I say Horimiya is my favorite show to watch.
Yeah.
Is it my favorite romance anime? I would argue Your Name might be somewhere up there. I would say I think you could argue that I have feelings about Kaguya-sama that make me feel different in terms of I like Kaguya-sama for certain things. And I think how much of a romance anime Horimiya truly is technically up for debate in terms of it's not as pertaining to the genre. That being said, I really, really, really love watching Horimiya. It's like one of the things that we go through when we pick shows to do this podcast again is because we both legitimately rewatch the shows, even though we've already seen them before, that we pick. It's so pleasant to watch. I think a lot of so much of this podcast was us just talking about the moments in the show, is because it has so much to give you in that regard. And I love how the show feels. And I think as a romance anime, if a show doesn't give you those really warm, fuzzy, like laughing, weird, dumb moments, then I don't think it's a show that, even if you love the two mains as a ship, I don't think it matters as much. I think it, as much as because like Hori-san and Miyamura-kun, I don't care about the ship that much. I more care about so many of the other pieces about them.
I can definitely say this easy. Horimiya is a show that is going to be on my, like, distinct, like, in its own space romance animes that I've watched and probably will watch. Like, I can say this very easily. Like, it's always going to be in there. Like, whenever someone asks me, like, oh, which romance animes, like, I'll be like, again, in that list, Horimiya is always going to be there.
Yeah,
Like,
I think it's such an easy recommendation.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to not like this show.
yeah.
Just
You have
solely.
to choose to not like it is what
I
I,
mean,
feel like.
anytime a writer's got sauce and they're writing well, right?
Yeah.
And they care about their characters, it's a wrap. It's like, they know how to write well. It's going to be good stuff. Like, even though, again, really simple, unoriginal, blah, blah, blah. You can say all these things about it. They care about their characters. They write them well. They care about their relationships. They write them well. It's really that simple.
But that being said, this would be a wrap, I guess,
Yeah, it's a wrap.
on us talking about Horimiya. We hope either you already enjoyed the show or will enjoy the show, but if you're getting into romance animes or you are already into romance but just yet to see Horimiya, definitely take a look and see it for yourself. It's really
Probably one of our easiest recommendations because even stuff like 86 and like Oi, which are higher recommendations per se, I'm like, oh, you got to be in the right headspace. Do you want to watch? Like, I'm like, Hori and Miyamura, I'm like, are you someone who cares about good characters and relationships? Yeah, you should watch Hori and Miyamura. It's very simple.
exactly. So go for it. And that being said, we'll see you on our next episode,
Which will be Awashi.
Yes, sir. Well, take care.
Later.